I never thought my sister would end up with a deadbeat partner. We had grown up in a close-knit family, and our parents had always instilled in us the importance of finding someone who would treat us with respect and kindness. But as we got older, things started to change. My sister became more distant, spending less time with the family and more time with her boyfriend. I didn't know him well, but from what little I saw of him, I didn't like him. He was rude and disrespectful, always talking down to my sister and making her feel like she wasn't good enough. But despite my concerns, she stayed with him, hoping things would improve. For years, my sister had been trying to have a baby. It seemed like it was never going to happen for her, and it broke my heart to see her struggle. So when she finally announced that she was pregnant, I was overjoyed. But then she told me who the father was, and my heart sank. They had been on and off for years, so I had hoped it was somebody else. Our parents were devastated when they found out. They had always dreamed of having grandchildren who would be surrounded by love and support. But now their daughter was pregnant with a baby who was going to be born into a broken home. One day, my sister asked to borrow my car to run an errand. I hesitated, given how irresponsible she had been in the past. I didn't think she would do anything to jeopardize the car, especially considering how much she needed it, but I couldn't risk it. I refused her. A few hours later, I got a call from the police. My sister had crashed my car into a ditch, and it was totaled. She was fine, but the car was completely destroyed. I was in disbelief. How could she be so reckless with something that didn't even belong to her? How did she even take my car? When I arrived at the scene of the accident, my sister was there crying and pleading for my forgiveness. She kept saying that she was about to give birth to the family's first miracle baby and that she needed my support. But I was beyond angry. I couldn't believe that she had stolen my car, crashed it, and expected me to forgive her just because she was pregnant. After the incident, I couldn't bring myself to speak to my sister for days. I called our parents and told them what had happened immediately. They had a right to know, and I knew they would want to help in any way they could. I called them and explained what had happened. And at first, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then my mother started to cry. She was heartbroken that her daughter had made such a huge mistake, and she was worried about the baby. My father was angry. He didn't understand how my sister could be so irresponsible, especially given the fact that she was carrying his grandchild. He wanted to speak to her immediately and give her a piece of his mind, but I told him to wait, to give her some time to calm down and think things through. It was a tense few days, with everyone walking on eggshells around each other. My sister was still upset, but she knew that she had made a mistake. She apologized to me and promised to make things right, but I wasn't sure if I could trust her again. A few days later, I got a call from my parents. Their tone was concerned, and they asked why my sister and I weren't speaking. It was clear that they were worried about the family falling apart. My anger began to boil over, and I tried to explain that my sister had stolen my car and crashed it, putting herself and others in danger. My mother's voice was gentle as she reminded me that my sister was about to have a baby and we needed to be there to support her. I knew she was right, but I couldn't bring myself to let go of my anger. Finally, my father spoke up. He reminded me that my sister needed our support more than ever as she prepared to become a mother. He asked me to be a part of the family no matter what. My father's words hit me hard, and I burst out telling him that I had always been a part of the family, unlike my sister. I was tired of always taking responsibility for her mistakes, and I couldn't believe that my parents were still expecting me to be there for her even after everything that had happened. I told my father that I wasn't going to put a stop to my own life just because my sister was pregnant. I had my own goals and dreams, and I couldn't let them fall by the wayside because of her choices. I was angry, and I told my father that it was time for my sister to take responsibility for her actions. Her boyfriend should take care of his child, and my sister should step up and be a good parent. I couldn't keep carrying the weight of her mistakes on my shoulders. My father listened quietly, and I could hear the sadness in his voice when he finally spoke. He reminded me that we were all part of the same family and that we needed to stick together no matter what. He asked me to try to understand my sister's situation, even if I couldn't forgive her yet. Despite my anger, I knew that my father had a point. We were all part of the same family, and I couldn't turn my back on my sister even if I was upset with her. But there was one thing that was still weighing heavily on my mind. "Are you going to pay for my car?" I asked my father, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. My car had been totaled in the accident, and I didn't have the money to replace it. It was affecting my work situation, too. I had to rely on public transportation, which made it difficult to get to meetings and events on time. It was a constant source of stress and anxiety, and I couldn't help but feel resentful that my sister's actions had put me in this position. My father sighed heavily, and I could tell that he was struggling to find the right words. Finally, he told me that he would talk to my sister's boyfriend about helping to pay for the damages, but he couldn't make any promises. I knew that my father was doing his best, but I couldn't help feeling frustrated and powerless. It felt like my life had been turned upside down. I didn't know how to move forward. Update 1. As the days went by, I found myself feeling more and more overwhelmed. Then one day, my mother called me, and I could hear the strain in her voice. She told me that my sister was going to be giving birth soon, in a few months, and that they were struggling to cover all the expenses. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you crazy?" I snapped. "Do you know how much it costs to have a baby, and you want me to help cover those expenses? I'm sorry, but I can't just hand over money like that." I gave my mother a reality check, reminding her that my sister had made a series of bad decisions that had led her to this point. Why did she have a baby before being financially stable, especially with her deadbeat boyfriend? I asked. Why should I have to pay for her mistakes? My mother was taken aback by my harsh words, but I couldn't help feeling frustrated. It wasn't fair that I had to shoulder the burden of my sister's poor choices, especially when I had always been responsible and hardworking. I knew that my sister was about to become a mother, but that didn't mean that everyone else had to put their lives on hold to support her. My mother was surprised that I didn't know how to respond. She tried to calm me down by reminding me that family always comes first and that we needed to support each other. But I wasn't going to relent. I knew that I had to stand up for myself and make it clear that I wasn't going to be responsible for my sister's mistakes. I told her straightforwardly that my sister and her deadbeat boyfriend should have been more responsible before deciding to have a baby. They should have been financially stable before taking on the responsibility of raising a child. I couldn't understand why everyone else had to put their lives on hold to support them. If they were trying for years, then they should have prepared for everything. My mother eventually realized that I wasn't going to change my mind and accepted my decision. She told me that she loved me and that she hoped that we could all come together as a family again soon. I hung up the phone feeling frustrated and powerless, but I knew that I had to stick to my decision. Update 2. I listened to my sister on the phone, feeling my frustration and resentment building up once again. She asked me, practically demanding that I be there during the birth, and I couldn't believe the audacity of her request. I probably would have if she had been even a little grateful for what our parents were doing for her. I told her that it was her boyfriend's responsibility to be there for the birth, not mine. I reminded her that I was still angry about everything that had happened and that I needed some time and space before I could forgive her. I couldn't just forget about the fact that she had crashed my car. I also told her that I wasn't going to be her support system anymore, as it was her responsibility to take care of her child and her own life. My sister sounded disappointed, but I knew that I had to stick to my decision. It wasn't easy to say no to my sister, especially during such an important time in her life, but I couldn't let her continue to take advantage of me. I had to stand up for myself and set boundaries, even if it meant disappointing those closest to me. Honestly, I understand where OP is coming from. It sounds like her sister has been able to get away with a lot, and OP has supported her before that. but I know how much stress not having a car can put on you. And asking someone to cover someone's birth expenses or even a portion of them is a lot. I don't think her sister was even going to pay her back. NTA. This isn't Fast and Furious. This is the real world. You can't keep saying family needs to stick together, but not keep one of them in line and let them get away with everything. OP is right. If you've been planning your so-called miraculous child for years, why didn't you financially plan alongside? NTA. Next story. My parents are divorced. Together they have my brother, 20, male, my sister, 19, female, and me, 17, male. Their marriage ended because my mom had 2 affairs. The first one came out when the second one did, because both were happening at the same time and my mom got pregnant with a baby who is now 10, female. Dad ended the marriage and Mom tried to make him responsible for her baby with another guy. Dad and her were married, so he was the assumed dad and he had to go to court. And there was a 2-year battle over this because he wanted nothing to do with the baby and Mom didn't want her to grow up watching my older siblings and I have a dad. While both her affair partners went AWOL and were refusing to play any role in her life and said no to doing DNA tests. Dad won in court and was removed from my half-sister's birth certificate. He has never met her and has made sure there's no contact there between them. 5 years ago, Mom got very sick and was in hospital for 3 months. My half-sister spent that time in foster care because our grandparents were told they were too sick, multiple chronic health issues between them, to take care of her when they had no idea how long Mom would be out of commission. They asked Dad to step up, but he said no. They tried to plead with my siblings and I to talk him around, but none of us wanted him to take her either. When Mom got out and got my half-sister back, she and my grandparents held a deep grudge against my dad. We already didn't think much of Mom, but after that, we asked Dad to try and get full custody of us. But when we were interviewed, we had mentioned the affair, and it was asked whether Dad tried to turn us against Mom, and we decided to keep 50-50 to not get him into trouble. I'm months away from getting away from Mom. My siblings already are. Mom had people over recently, and my grandparents were there. They were talking badly about Dad, said he was evil and that he left his own daughter to rot in foster care, and I told them she isn't his daughter and DNA proved that. They backtracked and said he left his kid's sister to rot. I said she was nothing to do with him. Then I called them out for being a-holes to him when Mom cheated on him with 2 guys and fought to make him responsible for her child. I said they all blamed Dad instead of wondering why they had nobody willing to take my half-sister when needed, and none of them could. Others heard the whole thing. My mom and grandparents said I was the a-hole. Am I? NTA. You didn't say anything that wasn't true. The truth hurts. That's probably why they were so upset, because they knew you were right. You speaking out isn't even a fraction of the horrible stuff that your mother tried to pull on your father. Good news is, in a year, you won't have to deal with them anymore. NTA, what you said was the truth. All they had to do was not talk crap about your father. It's a shame for the half-sister, though, having to be in foster care, but to try and place the blame on your father rather than the deadbeat sperm donor and trying to manipulate you guys into taking her in was truly an a-hole move on the grandparents' part. Next story. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible, but there are a lot of important details, LOL. So first, I just want to give a little bit of backstory. My boyfriend, 27, male, and I, 25, female, have been together for almost 5 years. Our anniversary is next month. My boyfriend's brother, Mitch, 30, male, and his girlfriend, Ashley, 29, female, have been together for 2 years. My boyfriend's other brother, Tom, 29, male, and his fiancée, Alexis, 27, female, have been together for over 10 years, and they're getting married in Italy this September. We live in the US. Alexis and I used to be fairly close, but we had an argument a while back that we never got over. I was pregnant at the time and ended up having a miscarriage, and she told my boyfriend's family that she thought I was lying about ever being pregnant. She still, to this day, swears I lied about being pregnant, and when I asked her why she believes that, she said, "I have a master's degree in psychology. I can tell when people are lying." So for the past 2 years, we have just always stayed civil at family events, but we stay out of each other's way. When they announced that they were getting married in Italy and it would be a 10-day trip and they expected the whole family to be there, my boyfriend and I were already annoyed because we planned to take a long vacation elsewhere for our anniversary this year. We aren't able to do both because of money and not having enough PTO at our jobs. But we decided to get over it since it's their wedding and it's more important than our anniversary trip. When we received the wedding invitation, it only said my boyfriend's name. But on the RSVP website, I gave him an option for a +1. So I just assumed that it would be the same for my boyfriend's brother, Mitch's invitation. But he actually said Mitch and Ashley on the invitation on the website. So my boyfriend asked Tom why my name wasn't on there, but Ashley's was. And Tom said there must have been some kind of mistake with the company they used for the invites. But he told my boyfriend that I was invited too. Then a few weeks later, Mitch and Ashley told my boyfriend and I that Alexis told them she purposely did not put my name on the invitation because she doesn't like me, and she thought it would be funny. I feel like that's a really immature and petty thing to do, and I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a 10-day trip to Italy for someone's wedding who disrespects me like that. WIBTA for not going? I hope this is enough info. Please feel free to ask any questions. Update. Okay, so I don't use Reddit very often, so I'm not sure the best way to update this. Like if I should comment or just keep it at editing the past. Haha. But I've decided to leave it up to my boyfriend, like some of you suggested. He said if I don't go to Italy, he's definitely not going without me, and that's okay with him. But then when we started talking about how we were going to tell his brother, I noticed how anxious he got and I felt horrible. So then I suggested he sit down and talk to his brother about us going to Italy, but only going to the rehearsal and the wedding, and us taking the rest of our vacation separately from them. And obviously explain to his brother why we don't feel comfortable doing more with them. And we agreed that was a good plan. But my boyfriend said if his brother reacts poorly in any way during their conversation, we will not go to Italy at all and we'll go to Costa Rica instead. I know this is kind of a crappy update, so I can give another one after they talk, but I have no clue when that'll be. Also, I just wanted to thank everyone for your suggestions and for taking the time to write out so many thoughtful and helpful responses. It's really so relieving to feel heard and understood. But in addition to that, thank you so much for all of the condolences. I don't talk about my miscarriage very often, or really at all, unless I'm talking about what Alexis accused me of. So I can't really even remember the last time someone has gone out of their way to comfort me about it. And then to have so many of you who don't even know me take the time to say such loving and kind words, you just have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you. NTA handled this like mature adults. Even allowed for possibility it was an error. Nope, intentional offensive behavior. Any social familial obligation is lost. Do what you want to do, including nothing. NTA, she's made sure that interacting with her is loaded, complicated. I wouldn't want to invite that drama into my life either. Go on your trip with your best friend instead. Have fun together. I have to ask though, not for the judgment though, but because this angers me. How is the rest of the family handling this? She accused you of lying about such a massive, tragic event in your life. They can't all have remained on the sideline, can they? Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.